What is the function of a record review in the year 2024, or even in the 21st century, really? This is one of the questions which came up when I was talking to Elijah. He is a profound thinker. He was a pioneer of grime with his Butterz Nights and label, which helped start the careers of artists like Stormzy and Skepta and a whole swathe of other artists that he was involved in. He is behind the Yellow Squares project, which if you've not seen it, just pause this for a second and go have a quick look. He is on Instagram, ELI1AH, and all he does is takes out his iPad, draws on it and writes some of his thoughts. And they're often really thought-provoking, and they're ideas which, to me, I've gained so much from following him online. And he describes what he does as a form of journalism. He's also written various places. He's been a blogger. He's a DJ. He does all sorts of different things. He's also a musician. He's just released a record, and I will link to that into the show description so you can go check that out. But I was curious to talk to him because he often posts about media, about journalism, about the music press, about events, because he's been obviously very involved in that space. And I couldn't think of anyone better, really, that's had a very parallel experience of me in the completely different music scene, who has so many thoughts and feelings and fears and excitement and possibilities and understandings of whereabouts technology is leading us. His way of thinking about platforms and thinking about what a record review is, what a live review is, like someone posting a photo dump on Instagram. It is kind of a review in a way that we wouldn't really recognize even a few years ago. So the first question I'm asking everybody is, what's your definition of journalism?
I think it's just collecting a lot of information and I guess breaking it down in a way that makes sense to you and then figuring out a way to share it. So I think the sharing part is maybe different to like collecting or curating or whatever. Like it's the sharing part that makes something, I guess, a journalistic, practice or exploration. Because once you know that you've got to make it make sense for someone else, it's already a different thing to just capturing something or trying to understand it for yourself.
That's a really interesting answer and so different to all the others. It's like a public form of journaling almost, which I don't think anyone's really lent into the word journal, which is the kind of collecting and compiling. So Elijah, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience? I could run through some of the highlights of your CV and make you feel less like you're blushing as you say it, but you've been very instrumental to changing careers of artists. You've been an innovator in DIY culture. Do you want to give your version of your introduction?
Yeah, I've just started out in pirate radio DJing in the grime scene, and among like another bunch of like talent and producers, we kind of like formed a little collective called Butterz, put out some records, produced a lot of stuff with the MCs that became famous a bit later on, put on club nights. I was very like open source about things in terms of my learning. I didn't have like music industry experience before, so I always asked a lot of questions, wrote about my experiences, tried to be transparent in a way that I thought like my experience might be useful to someone else coming in. And it's taken various shapes. So maybe first that was a blog, then Twitter, then now writing just short notes on Instagram called the Yellow Squares. And that in itself has become an art project that I'm just exploring the changes, shapes of my, I guess, own form of journalism, because it is journalism too. Yeah,
if you were to almost consider what you do on Instagram, it's far more useful than statistics about stuff that's happened, because I feel like your posts are often somewhere between a prompt and a prod, which I think is quite a powerful thing to be able to do in so few words often.
Yeah, I mean, they're for myself as well, so this is not like a top-down thing. It's like, oh, is this true? Oh, this is a conversation I'm having a lot. This is the question a lot of people are asking, how to kind of put it out there in the world. So there's, a lot of us can figure out that we're not alone, especially the people that maybe work by themselves or in really small teams or isolated, not in a big city. I think those are the people probably finding it most useful.
I looked up a few different things you've said about magazines over the years, and I found this really interesting thought that I don't know whether you'll be able to remember what you were thinking at the time, but you said, when people create new magazines and radio, they're just rebuilding the same old structures. What do you mean by that, and have your thoughts changed on it?
No, my thoughts haven't changed. It's like the same thing. It's like with record labels or with radio. They think of a magazine as the physical book turning pages, and then there's writing on top, or a website as pages with writing on top. When that isn't, if you think of what the function of a magazine is, rather than the physical layout that we grew up with. So I try to think of, what are you trying to get out of writing this thing, and is that the best function for what you're trying to get out of it, rather than going, I want to put it on a website, now give me some money. I'm thinking, what is the thing that you want out of it in the first place, and is that the best particular vessel? And maybe with, like, just using another example of radio, is that people would say, okay, I'm going to start my own radio station because I want to have a show, I want to present music in a certain way. But then they just go, okay, this is how Radio 2 programs. You have 2-hour slots, 7 days a week, all day, every day. And they think online radio stations need to operate in the same way. An online radio station could be just 1 day of programming and broken down in completely different sections. Or a show could be 10 minutes long or 10 hours long. It doesn't need to follow the formats that commercial or national broadcasters followed. They followed those formats for a different reason. Like when they have adverts and the slots and the kind of people that they're serving is a completely different reason. Whereas
I had an
taking
idea.
that format went online, it doesn't make sense.
I had an idea for a radio station once where you added one new song to it every day, and then you slowly started to take them away. And then if you tuned in like once a month or something, you'd hear like 2 hours of music or an hour of music. But then sometimes you just completely fall away and just be a whole other station. There's so many different ways in which radio could work, and I know exactly what you mean. Like for instance, when people want someone to discover the music they like, writing it on a blog and trying to get people to move from one social platform to another feels like a really short-sighted way of doing it. What sort of things do you feel are good examples of what people have done when they've tried to create a platform for music or tried to use their voice to support the music they like?
I think it's like any other artist would. It's just finding a language that people are willing to have a conversation around or willing to engage with you on. So some people, that's been the newsletter, has been like the way around that. They don't have to pitch to anyone. There's like a kind of freedom in terms of the length of pieces, the kind of things that they'll cover that maybe not an interest to Pitchfork, and then it goes directly in someone's inbox. So you're not having to find people every time. There's like the YouTubers that I watch quite a lot of YouTube, that are breaking down topics they want to in a way that they want to, in a format that I can watch while I'm doing something else, or while like I'm in a different kind of mindset. I watch YouTube on my television, for example. So I might not sit and read a review of 100 Gex album, but I might watch a short documentary by a fan. That's half an hour. And they're both journalism, but the reason I'm engaging with one format is because I'm sitting, relaxing, having a cup of tea. Whereas the other with the other format, like you're on the computer and that immediately feels like a work or something.
It's really interesting because some of the interviews I've done in this series have been exactly about that, how the format, the medium allows for so many different things, and the idea that a magazine is just something in print. Like, because I think one of the actually, I was going to say you should probably shout out some of the YouTubers that you recommend people watching, because I'm sure you've probably got some good ones that not everyone's seen.
Yeah, I mean, there's like big ones like Super Eye Patch Wolf, who kind of makes some stuff on like random topics. So it'll be like gaming, like The Simpsons, pro wrestling. I think he's got a couple of music ones. There's a guy, I think he's called Nathan Zed, who does like kind of really interesting takes on, I guess, macro things. So it'd be like, why is everyone making long albums, or why are concerts all the same at the moment, or what? You know what I mean, like those kind of topics, things that do get covered in magazines. Actually, I don't think there's any. I think there's one thing that's disappointing about the electronic music space, and a lot of British music, is that people don't do it on YouTube. Everything is orientated around radio because of the pirate radio history here we have in the UK, maybe, and radio, like the BBC being like such an institution here, whereas other places, when you listen to other music, radio is just not a thing in the same way. I watch like Amapiano channels. Maybe there's not reviews on those, but they are talking about the music and engaging with it differently to how we do.
So I think that was interesting, actually, that you just said about the slightly more, like a discussion topic almost, because that's really what a lot of great writing often is. It's someone's got a point of view. And I think the reviews format's, again, like another format that holds music consumption back, or music, talking about music back, because it's that idea that you're meant to, is this good or bad? Like that's not how we experience music, is it?
No. So like I had a tweet about this a few months ago, and it's like a review is when you first listen to it, when you've seen it live, and then a year later. That, I feel like that's an objective review that you could have. If someone just sitting in their house by themselves listening to Make the Ting, the album that I just made, I don't care about your opinion. Like whether you like it or not, like fine. But the review properly of the album is the way it was made, the approach to releasing it, the lyrics on the thing, the beats, the remixes, and all of the ancillary projects around it. It's not just like listening to the audio files. And most albums aren't like that anymore. So I really try to like get out of taking music at face value.
You reminded me of the day that I said music journalism died, when Radiohead Rush released an album and the internet reviewed it within 3 hours. And that was it. They decided it was either the third best or the worst Radiohead album ever and it's like Radiohead spent years making a body of work. And to think that even like, I think the Guardian review was up within 2 hours, Pitchfork in a few hours. And it's like, what you're doing is just giving an initial valuation of a record. And I remember meeting this kid that was running this really great blog called 1 Year On, and he only reviewed albums that he'd listened to for like a year since they come out. And it felt like such a better format for criticism, to call it that.
Yeah, and maybe like even position as a journalist or like a writer's first position is as a critic or someone that is criticizing work isn't the form that should lead first. Like what should be different, what you like and dislike isn't necessarily the most captivating reason for being. Like imagine if the review is all of the possibilities that the album lays down, and all reviews are shaped around that aspect, not whether you think the drums on a song are good or whether you think Radiohead is better than whatever other band. I can't think of one. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, exactly. I know what you're saying.
That is quite hard, and I think even just seeing my album reviewed recently, it's like it's like talk about like minor parts of the process that are not like the kind of driving force behind the music or the ideas in it, and I'm like, oh well, fine, I'll take it.
You reminded me of a friend of mine who lives in LA, and he has the most LA job of reviewing weed for a magazine. But they review it as a collective. So you have a week and you've got to have it first thing in the morning. You've got to have it when doing a certain activity, and then they all choose the same thing, and you have it at a gig, and then you submit your review, and then they like merge all the reviews together into this. This is when we think it's probably best to smoke this. And like, I'd love the idea of a record going, we spent 3 weeks with this record and we found it's really great driving in the rain. And like, to me, that would just be such a simple, I want to know what's a good record to listen to driving in the rain. Or
exactly.
I was thinking with electronic music, it's quite hard a lot of the time to have that much to say about it.
Well, okay, I'll push back on that. That there's maybe if enough context is given behind each record, then there will be more to say. Like once you know that, say whatever, DJ Rashad is from Chicago and there's footwork and there's dancing and the picture is of the above of Chicago. Yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of things happening that might not be obvious just to listening to the sound. Okay, then you take in the samples. Okay, what are all those things? Like that's already 1,000 words.
Yeah. But
on face value, it could just be beat, fast, what's going on here? Like this is new. This is sick, and that's it. You know, like, there's all these like kind of subtle things happening that maybe not be obvious to write about, that is worth writing about or thinking about at least.
So the journalist's sleight of hand of giving you the opposite thing to push against gave a better answer. because I think there's loads to say about electronic music, and I often hear that like when there's not words, people, like a lot of writers only really engage with the words, or they engage with the myth of the band, and like, because I think so much, and I've been thinking a lot about where music writing could head, not necessarily music journalism, and the experiences of being a music fan feel quite rare, and I think to read anyway, or to listen to, because often it's someone's personal subjective experience, and a lot of people aren't that interested in it. But I feel like with like electronic music, having the memory and the different connections, and almost this piece of music sits within this map of the world, almost feels like a much more interesting way of experiencing and sharing that experience. Sorry, you're about to say something.
No, I wasn't. No, I was listening. Yeah. No, it's maybe that is happening on people's Instagram. So like the picture is telling 1,000 words, right? So, and the photo dump of insert festival name is that capturing that, but it's not captured in words. So there is more music journalism happening using that lens than ever.
Yeah, and maybe we're better off to think about that as capturing something rather than, I don't know. I've read a few different things you said. There was you suggested some ideas if you were to guest edit an electronic magazine, and I really love this idea that you put of grand closings and talking about all the things we've lost, because I think again that like Joni Mitchell line, you call place paradise but a parking lot. It's like people don't know what they've got till it's gone. Again, another cliche, terrible way of thinking about it. But I think unless we know what we're losing, we don't really know. We don't get that impetus to go out and to love it, and to search for more of those things before they disappear.
Yeah.
Extinct labels, extinct clubs. What were you thinking? Was there anyone in particular when you suggested that idea you thought we're thinking about?
No, maybe because you interpret it slightly differently to how I thought, is that a lot of things end and then they just say, oh, we've closed, and then you don't interrogate why they closed, and that is a story within itself. Like the grand closing of something. Oh, okay, this club is closed. Yeah, they had financial problems, but actually what led to the change, or what is their interpretation of why they got into financial problems? I find that like mad interesting itself. Like some of the things are like, yeah, like there's financial problems, that's one layer, but the second layer is like change in taste. Third layer might be, okay, management has this view of what a club is and is unwilling to adapt. Another layer might be monopoly powers taking, or pushing the audience in a different direction. Another layer might be, this town has Uber and this town doesn't, so everyone goes there instead of going there. Like all of these kind of other stories that are playing out at the same time, and just like reducing it to say like, oh, we had like a sick time at insert venue. Sometimes, yeah, obviously those moments are important to capture, but you also don't understand why as much is happening as it is. Like I saw a tweet today about 35 nightlife businesses are closing every week. Okay, what does that mean? And then how many are opening? Or who counts as a nightlife business? Do I count as a nightlife business? Like when 80% maybe of the revenue is generated around nightlife, do I count as that? Maybe not. I don't know. So there's, just like I say, many layers to every story that I think, especially with electronic music, it leans towards, this is what we think the story is. So we like, oh, it's just clubs are closing. That is not the story. That is a byproduct of 20, 30 things happening at once. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Because it's the inverse of the stories we normally hear, which is how something was successful. Because we hear all the time how someone made it, and often not a path that you can follow. Like if I told someone how I made it, using scare quotes, it was because there was no other websites on the internet, and it was very easy to build a website and get an audience when there wasn't a lot of competition. Now there's a lot of competition. You couldn't do what I did, and I wouldn't recommend someone tried. It's like, but that's that story of the deconstructing why things are broken. I think then you can, like, if you don't understand a problem, you can't fix it.
Yeah, and some of these things are not problems. So, like, I try not to. I've been this person before where I looked at every club closing as a problem, and I'm like, now zooming out, some of the, again, like using that logic, okay, look, nothing lasts forever, and all of these things have some sort of shelf life. Like artists have like some sort of window that they go through. They maybe make 3 albums that are people like, and then there's this other kind of vacuum of time that they exist in. Is that a bad thing? Is it a bad thing that, I don't know, your favorite artist doesn't have 10 great albums? No, that's how art and music and culture works. And the same thing happens with space too. And yeah, we do get sad about losing our spaces or losing spaces that mean something to us. But then the same way, like a whole bunch of people would have been crying about print works going, like, whereas I'm like, whatever, like it's like another spot, but to someone else, that was their thing, you know?
Yeah. And it also opens up other opportunities, because if 20% of the people that went to Printworks are now going to go to a much smaller club that's going to have a different vibe and not have to be pleasing as many people, then there's an opportunity there. And there's lots of different ways when things fracture, isn't there? They create new space.
Yeah, maybe. And like, these things are not as linear. Like, if you're into like several different things, so if you're into like, I don't know, eating and boxing and music, those things are not like, those things kind of happen in isolation. So in a weekend, for example, I might go to watch Leyton Orient, go to a club, go out to eat, and those 3 things could close for a completely separate different reason, or they exist in my brain in different reasons. But then there's moments where like my kind of experience from one thing is bleeding into the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's crossfading.
Yeah, and sometimes like what happens with culture is like, okay, people are not, say, like going to clubs as much, but they're gathering in this space, or they're going to this space, or like these creatives that used to gather in this way are now doing this thing. And I see this with electronic music all the time. Some of the most creative people I know are not ever going to go and step foot into a club anymore. And it's like, how does the electronic music space make itself more interesting and more welcoming to people that, you know, for the last 5 years haven't felt like that space is for them? I think that's happened a little bit, like as things have opened up, but there's definitely like some sort of other breakthroughs that can happen that would make those spaces a bit more vital than they are currently.
I think there's also that. I think it's also that thing when you said earlier about where were you going to choose to put something rather than in a magazine, and it's like, if you've got a great idea that's going to change society, are you going to write in a lyric, or are you going to go code a piece of software that's going to help people do something easier? It's like, if you're a smart person and you've got all these different instruments at your fingertips, which instrument are you going to play? And it's like, sometimes it's coding, sometimes it's standing outside of your MP's office until they agree to go into Parliament and say a certain phrase in a certain way that's going to make policy change in the country or something. You don't have to strum an acoustic guitar and hope that enough people listen to it for it to cause cultural changes. Exactly.
That's a good way of putting it. So like the person that came up with like #MeToo, the person that came up with Black Lives Matter, the person that comes, I don't know, claims that make the thing, the club wasn't the vessels for those things. And there was a time in history where music was the driver of, you know, social change. And I don't think it is like at the forefront anymore, because we have, you know, thumbs and Twitter, or we have Instagram and images, and that's maybe what spreads faster than, say, I don't know, Bob Marley, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or whoever the equivalent would be today. And yeah, I don't know, but yeah, man, I don't know. Like, I don't think that can't happen again though. So I'm not ruling that out. Otherwise, I wouldn't stick around. If I didn't think that was possible, then I'll just do something else.
I feel like this is either going to be a short or a long answer. Okay. Are gatekeepers a bad thing? And do you have to really define what a gatekeeper really is?
What do you define as a gatekeeper?
I don't know. I keep hearing the term, and I keep hearing how bad journalists were and how much better it is now that there's not as many people in the way, and DJs and all the other things like people have got. But do you replace one gatekeeper with another often? Or because I don't really understand this idea that people were holding things back. It's like all the people I know that work in music, they often are really passionate about the things they love, and they go above and beyond with the amount of time they can afford and resources they've got to try and help those things grow in the world. I don't think people are like, well, this thing's amazing, but I don't want anyone else to know about it.
No, okay, but there's a process of what you, like you'll say, like you're interested in, so you don't cover what something else that is.
Yeah.
So I think most gatekeeping is someone, say, like following their interest and not open, like leaving the door open behind them, right?
Yeah.
So in a journalist sense, it might be, hey, my magazine, whatever, Enemy, we don't think rap music is important. That is a gatekeeping type of way of thinking, right? But all they're doing in their heads is just covering the music that they love, which I don't think inherently is negative. But to someone else or to another cultural movement, that could be seen as gatekeeping.
Yeah.
When it comes down to individual level, because there's two different things happening, right? There's what you're saying, okay, if the gatekeeping is happening now by like the DSPs, you don't have a throat to choke here. Like, we don't know who's behind the algorithm or behind the playlist or behind, like, you don't know. It's just Apple Music, it's just Spotify, it's just
you can't just go baseball every server farm until it starts to work.
No. And that's annoying more than anything. But again, it just throws up another creative challenge. But I guess our gatekeepers a good thing for the kind of things that maybe like just the gatekeepers is changing shape, like of what the gatekeeper even is. So there's probably more gatekeepers now than there was before. They all kind of slightly less powerful, and it's like even more confusing. It's because you have like the platform gatekeeper, the person behind the platform, the algorithm, the way if you're putting a song on Spotify, it has to bang on there. Then you're trying to like promote it on Instagram, it has to bang on there. Then you're like interfacing with the real world. You have to like be able to perform or like be able to tour or like be able to be visible in some meaningful way for most of the time. That has to work. Then, okay, like journalists or like the press or some other ecosystems have to be like capturing what's happening. There's a lot that needs to go right to have like some sort of mainstream appeal or coverage or all of those things working at the same time. I don't know. Depends what you do. Like
Good.
most of the time, when people talk about gatekeepers and gatekeeping, it's the thing they're thinking of as the gatekeeper is beyond what they need to care about at that moment. So the reason I don't care about any gatekeeper at the moment is because I don't feel like there's a gate for the ideas that I want to do.
Yeah.
If I wanted to be on Radio 1, yeah, sure, but that's not in my ambitions.
That relates to one of the other things I noted down. You said most artists don't know what they want, and I think this is one of the truest things. Like when people take on a press officer, and I didn't get any press, it's like, well, what press did you want? What did you expect? Like, I think that's such a key thing, and I wondered if, in a way, a lot of people, when they say, well, music journalism's dead, or music, like radio and all these other formats don't exist anymore, it's like, well, what did you want from them, and what do you want? Like, that's like, as consumers or as people reflecting on the culture, like what you I already got a question there, but jump in.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, so I was responding to a post about PR, and I guess if you pay for PR, like, what is the result people expect? They expect everything. So they expect to be in front of the whatever magazine is in their scene. They expect to get an essential mix, and they expect to be written about as a star. But you know, with artists that I'm orbiting or like people that speak to me, I say, well, they have the same motivations and ambitions as you. So what is in it for them to write about you? And people just think, oh, that's their job to write about music. And it's like, no, their job is to sell advertising space wrapped around the coverage of music. That's what magazines have been historically, right?
Yep.
And if you are not, you know, helping that cause, then there isn't a reason to write about it. And you can see on your timeline the changing nature of music journalism in the same way there's a changing nature of music streaming or Bandcamp or whatever it is. Like, if you or artists are getting paid less and less, do you think journalists are getting paid more and more? Which one do you think it is? You know, and it's the same with this. This is all like hierarchical, right? It's like if the artist gets paid less, the manager gets paid less, the label gets paid less, the journalist gets paid less, and it just keeps on going down and down and down. But the person that is writing the music and wants to get their shit covered doesn't think that. They're just like, yeah.
So if music is part of one of my least favorite words, the creator economy, and it's about monetizing content with advertising, how do you feel about this slow shift towards kind of subscriber and crowd-funded projects? Like, obviously running a record label, I think, is quite a obvious thing, especially as the levels that we've run labels at. You're crowd-funded in that if the crowd don't buy your records, then you've not got any funding to put records out, and felt quite almost like the records were a token of people's appreciation if they bought them or not. How do you feel optimistic about the idea that maybe you might shift away from reliance on those advertisers?
I mean, no one should have ever been relying on them in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's my take.
That's it.
Unless you really wanted to be out here selling sandals or selling BMWs, then like
the whereabouts are your hopes for where media might shift next? Because we're so reliant on what the platforms do, and it feels like culturally things have been often driven by people and changes in actions and activities. Have you seen anything that's given you a bit of hope? Not that you are an optimistically hopeful. You're quite an optimistic and hopeful person, but
I just think today, you know, at Instagram, I was saying, use the art or the work to break the constraint, not trying to fix the constraint. You can't fix Twitter. You can't fix Spotify. You can't fix Bandcamp. Me and you can't.
Yeah.
So with that restriction, what can be done, or what purpose does the art serve with these limitations or with these boxes? And that's what, like, you know, my like project is trying to like is, you know, in its own way interrogating. It's like, okay, the day I put up this record, the, you know, the physical records of my album to sell, Bandcamp sold again. I was like,
yeah.
I was like so now I've got to figure out another way to sell it, because even like it's just hard to like talk. It's hard to talk up using Bandcamp right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. That's another like little constraint. The people that are no, I don't think it's about being clever. It's just the integral part of the art is finding that gap. The same way an artist does. And I think like journalists and people that write about music celebrate these artists that find that gap. That is part of our job and why we get excited about music. But part of like the journalism and the ecosystem's way of kind of fixing itself or cleansing itself or making something new is doing it for itself. Like the best journalist in music will be the most read. The best journalist in music, in electronic music, might just end up being somewhere between an artist themselves, a DJ, a producer, someone that is like clever documenting and recording things, and it might not look like what the journalist looked like before. That's what's hard. So even when people are describing the work that I do, they think it's a, you know, this slash. Actually, it's one bit of work with all these different mediums, but just the language hasn't adjusted to serve that yet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And that, I guess that's the question I was really asking is how connecting ideas to people, and like going back to what I was saying before, you'd have to play an acoustic guitar to be political and make a statement. Like now you can make that statement in so many different ways and so many different actions. Like, where do you feel, because I thought there was an interesting thing you posted actually about why would you sign to a record company? It doesn't have a club, doesn't have a studio, doesn't have a magazine, doesn't have essentially a built-in audience. Like you've got to build that audience otherwise. Like I don't really have a question, but I can feel that there's what a journalist does, what a label does, what all these different things, they all sit within the same parameter of connecting an idea, a song, a product to an audience, and it's a one-to-one fan connection. And currently we've got algorithms in the way, we've got needs to spend money on advertising in the way. Like, do you see anything in amongst that's changing?
Well, I think the difference now is, like, I guess the journalists and people that are capturing are also the makers.
Yeah.
Before, there was a hard separation between the artists and the people that are recording it or capturing this stuff. But now it's like everyone is contributing something artistically.
Cool.
So they are part of the ecosystem in a completely different way. And I think that's healthy. And it's like building empathy for each other. Like, now, if you're like, some of the people that wrote about my work in the early stages are now releasing their own music and putting out beats and stuff. And now they're like, oh man, I didn't realize how hard it was. I'm like, now you feel that, and that's good. I feel like just if you can't program it, you can't understand it. That kind of logic, right?
Yeah.
And we can have a deeper, like, kind of appreciation for each other's work and contribution, and we can all do a bit to serve this thing. So the music journalist pool was maybe in the UK, let's say 100 people getting paid regularly to write about music, but now in a small, like, it might be 10,000 people but contributing a smaller amount and making the definitions of things a lot more rich. Like, before, what someone like is like all this stupid stuff, like people would say, oh yeah, grime used to be made on PlayStations. I'm like, no, it wasn't. Like, but this is something that could, if one person said it high up enough, that could be canon.
Yeah.
And now, like, the many stories or the many versions of a history now that can be told, for some people makes it more confusing, but then for the ecosystem, it's a more true version of what's happening. Like, house music in the UK existed outside of the Manchester Hussein, like, you know what I mean? Or Ibiza with the Paul Oakenfold. Like, it's like unbelievable that people still tell the story like that. And like, Jimmy Savile didn't invent DJing. Like, all this mad stuff that people still say today because that's how they learn it. Not realizing that there's 100,000, 10,000 histories happening at once. And that's like something that music journalism, the box, cannot fully capture.
Yeah, it's almost like the act of putting words to something creates the history. It's all interpretations of history, isn't it? It's like
like, it's very different telling the story of grime from a point of view as like a 16-year-old hearing people make songs that went to your school like, than it would be for like a journalist from another town. And both histories or both points of view are both valid and worth existing and worth hearing. And that is, again, you could times that by every music, every artist, every point of view. And maybe there's ways to filter down or like raise some up if some stories are more interesting or better told or better presented. And I don't know, that's endless. Like, there's like I don't know, for me, I get like infinite ideas. Maybe you're talking about how these infinite ideas find a revenue stream indefinitely, and I don't have an answer to that. No one does.
Damn it. I thought I was going to get the secret, because I think that is the thing. It's like I do suffer from the problem of infinite ideas too, and constantly can look at things from different angles and sometimes feel like I'm processing stuff. And one of the things I find really interesting about following you and seeing all the different ways in which you've kind of brought your ideas to life, and sometimes you'll be talking about a topic and then I'll realize, oh, you've actually done all these things that's kind of, but that what you might have done is just, with film, when you're developing film and you just agitated someone's idea ever so slightly and changed what the shot looks like. I feel like that's something which is quite rare when you're just scrolling through social media, to feel like someone might have walked away with something. And I guess where I'm thinking a lot about the moment of, like, I grew up with lots of different mediums that made me appreciate and excited about music. And what I can't figure out at the moment is whereabouts Little Me would do that now. But also with all of the platforms we've got, there's obviously a multitude of different ways people can do all these different things. But it feels like none of these places, none of the platforms being run by people that love music in order to get more people to listen to music or to appreciate things that they might not have. It's just super serving people with more of the same of what they already like. And that feels like, I don't know whether that's the same with DJs and clubs. And it feels like culture needs something to happen at the moment, and I don't really know what.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Like the flattening of culture and like coming through all these apps. Basically everyone ended up listening to Drake.
Yeah.
And like all the club DJs playing Show Me Love. It's like, okay, what's happening here? I don't know. I think that part of this is like, you know, our own little mini fight back, or like kind of. This is one thing, maybe all of the time I've been producing and putting out work, it has been in chaotic environments.
Right.
So part of all of this is like, are we trying to find this like thing that just works for like a period of time or not? But that if in the time that I've been doing stuff, it's like, you know, 2008, I was on like pirate radio. It was like I was breaking the law to like broadcast, and then like I was using Blogger, the Google thing. Then it went to like Twitter, which is not really Twitter anymore, and then MySpace, and like kind of a hybrid between MySpace and Twitter, and then Facebook
Tumblr.
came with the like pages. Yeah, Tumblr. I love Tumblr. Then it got bought by Yahoo, and it's like no good anymore.
The one thing I loved about Tumblr is it felt like DJing ideas, like because you could spin something out there and then people could just repeat it and like reblog it, whatever it was called. It felt so different to all the other platforms, and I don't know why. I think it's because you just scrolled your feed and it was random GIFs, and then someone's like 9,000 word poetry, and so then the next thing was like a picture of a meme or something. It just felt so much more expressive than a lot of other platforms have.
Yeah, and maybe the pages that people had were designed right. Like MySpace had that as well, where you go on someone's page and it feels individual. Now we're all like, you know, all boxes on Instagram, or we're all like, you literally cannot change the shape of your profile.
Because the philosopher tech guy Jaron Lanier talked about using most tech platforms currently feels like entering into Excel spreadsheets. We're all entering into the same box, and it's pretty limited on what you can put in that square.
Yeah, and maybe Tumblr was like the last one that was like, yeah, just do whatever you want, and probably why it made no money and got sold to Yahoo. Some like, and maybe we've seen this with TikTok as well, is that some of the things that scale fastest and travel the fastest, like obviously are gonna like be the most stupid or destructive. And the things that maybe move a bit slower and a bit more thought out, they don't work at scale. So it's like, I guess like Bandcamp is the perfect example. You'd think that would have just stayed independent, but that company was started under the circumstances of like any other startup to maximize profits for shareholders.
It was I had listened to an interview not too long ago with one of the founders, and he just seemed like, because they started quite early. It was like 2008, 2009 or so. It's like, and I'd imagine he's probably just reached the point of people saying, you do know this is worth a lot of money. And I think that was, I don't know, I didn't get the impression from an interview I listened to from like 4 or 5 years ago with him that he was necessarily building a startup to sell it. I think he built essentially a cool little independent record shop that scaled. But I think, like, for instance, I was frustrated with Bandcamp because you can't really browse it. And one of my favorite things about music is being able to jump off on different paths. And I think that's the thing that I feel like that's missing slightly. That, like, I want to dip into your world and your record collection, or 50 things that you love that are completely interconnected, but some of them are music, some of them are not. and explore. And I feel like it's really hard to explore. Like, you're a bit younger than me. I don't know whether you would have had Napster.
Yeah.
But
I had like broadband in like 98.
Okay. I wasn't sure if we had much of an age difference, but I loved being able to browse someone's hard drive on Napster. Yeah, okay.
I'm 36, so I was lucky that I had a computer in the house from very young. So I'm kind of, I was saying to like a workshop on Saturday, it was like, I'm half analog, half digital. I have records, but I've been having MP3s since whatever, Slim Shady LP, whenever that was. Yeah, might be
2001? No, 99.
2000, no, maybe it's 99.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I wrote an A-level sociology essay about it, so it must have been 99.
Okay. There you go. But yeah, that let's see, hold on. What yeah, February 99.
Right.
So yeah, like I literally had broadband in 98. So, and I had, I guess, whatever the dial-up situation was before that.
Yeah.
I had it in year 7 and I was in or maybe year 6. So I had dial-up in year 6, which would have been 97 or 98.
Yeah. I guess the thing that I was thinking about with Napster was just that idea of just being able to browse someone's collection. To literally peer into someone's hard drive just felt so much more interesting than... You can't even really do that on Spotify. I don't think you can actually look at what someone else is listening to, and it's like, it feels, I don't know, it feels like we're anatomizing people, and like what I want is to open an app and it feel like a rush of passion and excitement and people wanting to share the things that but in amongst that, finding people to trust, finding like, for instance, you've stopped appearing on my Instagram feed and I don't really know why. Like, I'm probably just didn't engage with one post and then it decided, oh, he's not interested anymore. But that was one of the things I liked opening Instagram for. It was like occasionally get something and you'd give me a whole food of thought on a topic. And but that, why we open the apps in the first place, like that's because your refrain is close the app, make the thing, isn't it? It's like, that's the, you've seen this, now go away. Yeah, it's one of the, it felt like a refrain for a while.
Yeah, as in like, I know what you're getting at, and like one of the additions to that was when people were talking about music on Twitter, for example, especially if they were like saying, you know, like how you have community notes.
Yeah.
If you're reviewing an album like 1 hour after it's released, it should have you like your play count underneath, like, you know what I mean, like the musical equivalent of a community note. Or when someone is talking about, I don't know, being at Woodstock or something, I'm like, this person was not at Woodstock. Like, this person was born in like 2002. They have like nothing like they can add to this conversation. You know what I mean? Like these community noting ourselves, like, of culture or music or whatever. Anyway, yeah, you're right though about feeds and you know what I guess we're plugging into these tubes. Yeah, I don't know how to solve that. Maybe it's just not a thing to be solved. It's just it's just again part of the challenge or part of the experience that we're going to have making these things. And I remember at the time when Napster and then later Kazaa and WinMX, I was like, you know, getting into music and like figuring out ways to make this work. And a whole generation of people that I guess would have been a beneficiary of like music sales and even streaming, it would have been better than nothing. Just never got to like have a fair crack at music, which was a shame, you know?
Yeah, there was definitely a lost generation, I think, from like the mid 2000s where just there wasn't the same money there. Like, even to throw at independent labels, like we went from selling 80,000 copies of an album to about 3,000, like quite quickly. And that was just literally people bought CDs, then they did. It was like a huge shift. I feel like we can carry on talking for ages, but I'm very conscious and precious of your time. But there was something you said a minute ago that, like, you got me thinking about lots of different things. But the idea that if you're a music fan right now and you want to do the best thing for an artist, you wrote a while ago that the best way to support musicians is to buy music. And I wonder if if what someone does is not necessarily making music, and I don't want to use again my second least favorite C word, which is content creator. But I think content is one of the worst words because it turns everything into the same kind of grey slush. But what would you suggest? And because obviously you're someone who spends your time putting your ideas out into the world, sharing parts of yourself, and people get something back from it. And sometimes they get a lot of value from it. I think value is one of those awful words that's massively misused in modern culture. Whereabouts, what do you see the ways in which different people are using the platforms to sustain?
Well, first of all, I guess, do you have to use this idea or this medium or this thing to sustain anything? Could you just be doing something else and this be part of, your creative expression, or as a hobby, or whatever it's going to be? Right. If you choose to, want to like earn money directly from it, then give people an option to support you, like a mechanism that makes sense to you. And most people don't have that. So when they say, "Oh, I don't make any money," I'll say, "Well, what do you sell?" Really? And they can't, like, this it's counterintuitive. And I guess with the yellow squares, like, a lot of the ways that I could make money from it, I don't do it that way. So like people approach me, "Oh, can you make a course? Can you do this?" I'm like, no. Like, the thing is to make something for yourself. It's not for me to tell you what to do. But if you want to support the work that I do, I will make art that is kind of orbiting those ideas. So that is the best way to support what I do. And if you want to support musicians, buy music, every word was important there. So people read it differently. They're like, "Oh, what about merch? What about tickets? What about this? What about that?" I'm like, no. If you want to support musicians, people that make the music, buy the music. Yeah. That was the point I was making. And sometimes it's like, well, if you buy the t-shirt, the violinist who plays on track 7 does not get paid. Yeah. Apart from their day rate or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? And that was the point I was making. True. And sometimes, like, when we're stretching things out, like you said, to content and to thing, the money doesn't get to the people that make the thing. They're not a beneficiary of all of the value that they create. And part of, me giving an option for people and providing an option for people to support the work that I do, or like, feel like, okay, well, you've given us something, how can we give you it back, or whatever. Then it's like, well, I'm also putting money back into the ecosystem too. So I've made an album with an MC, with other producers, with a studio, master engineer, I've pressed records, I've used Bandcamp. Like, there's a whole, in a tiny way, me contributing to the ecosystem too. So it's not, you're just giving me 20 quid. You're also supporting other musicians too. And if you can figure out a mechanism for your own projects to do that, or your own, newsletter, or your own things to do that, then I think that's a good thing for the ecosystem.
Exactly. Well, we moved from ecosystems to pipelines. What have you got coming up? Anything people should keep an eye out for, or things you're excited about?
So my own projects, I'm doing like a 360 kind of visual installation of the album in Brighton at the Old Market, which is in December, 1st of December. I'm doing a tour, or like lecture and DJ tour in India, for the first time in December. So I've never been there before. And it's like the most talking and DJing I've ever done in a week and a half. I think it's like 7 shows now.
That's cool.
And then, I don't know, I'm like figuring out what is how to make myself like as useful as possible to like artists I work with, or like communities I'm adjacent to, and just like looking for exciting things to not just to work on, but to read around and think about. That's outside of music too. So yeah, I've always got something. I'm never bored, put that way.
Yeah, I think one of my questions I asked you earlier, I probably should have asked, what's the most useful thing a person can do to support the music they love? Like, I think that's the question. Like, the whole point of me doing this series of interviews is my feeling a bit lost at what's the best thing I can do for the music I love. What's the most useful thing I can do for the ecosystem of music? And I think those are the recurring themes, which I think we have a fair bit of overlap. And just like, but often most people, like, if you looked at music as our roles as like public goods, and if music was a socialist rather than capitalist economy, how differently would everything work? Because profit wouldn't be the main motivator. Because the reason I find the word value odd a lot of the time, I couldn't value my favorite songs. They mean more to me than I could ever put a price on, and yet I'm told they're 99p on to download, or £10 to buy on a CD, and like that to me doesn't feel right. In the same way, sometimes if you get given a magazine for free because it's full of advertising, it sometimes feels like a lot more than something that should be free. And sometimes someone charges £20 for a magazine, and I've read it and it doesn't necessarily seem like it was worth £20. But I know, like, all the different things you just said, that different people you have to pay, the illustrator, the designer, like this £20 worth of costs have gone into it and then some. So that quest to find how to be useful, I think that's a really good question for everyone to be pondering.
Yeah, maybe like for me, like I've been saying for a lot of people, is like go smaller. So the thing that you like, tell someone else that is sick, or buy a ticket and take someone with you. And that is like, all right, we can tweet and blast all these things out onto Instagram, whatever it's going to be, and scream into the void. But when was the last time someone was like, you should listen to this thing? No, it's the sickest thing ever. Like, that is still like the best review, the best feedback. And most of the time the artist doesn't know it's happening. That's like the beautiful thing about that. They can't read your tweet to your friend. They can't see your WhatsApp message. They won't know that you came with that person, or you're introduced by someone just buying a ticket and taking you to the show. Like, I've got like a thread about this, like the deep feedback. Like, that is really what you're after. Like, yeah, obviously if you just search your name and everyone was saying nice things about you, great. But the essence of someone feeling so like moved by your work that they want to bring someone or tell someone or buy it for someone else is like, you're doing something. Like, that's what you're shooting for, really. And that could be one-to-one, or like us, recommending each other music to listen to or check out. That still feels like the highest form of like music communication or music journalism or whatever. Like, if I asked any person, whatever, resident advisor, to recommend me an album and they didn't answer me like in a compelling way, I wouldn't care about what they've written about on the website. It's like, to give me an album that you enjoy from 2023, and like, boom.
Yeah.
Well, or what? Just tell me what you've been listening to on your thing. Just show me. And I'll do that to people all the time. Okay, last thing I was listening to was Bad Bad Not Good. All right, cool. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Boom. And like, not it being instinctive. You got on a bus and someone was like, oh, what, or you went to a house party. What should we put on? You go into a dinner. Oh, you like music? You're the music guy. What should we put on? If you're able to like answer that question and in a compelling way, then that's like the highest form for me.
Do you often do what I do and ask a question back to work out their taste first?
No.
I sometimes do. I've found myself doing it increasingly, because sometimes I'll be like, you need to go listen to this piece of music by Hammock, and it's like an 11-minute like ambient drone, and it's like, it's beautiful, but if you've never listened to drone music before, it's going to confuse you. But at the same time, I like confusing people and taking them out of their safety zones. And
because if they tell you like some random parameters of things that they've enjoyed previously, that's also a reason to play them the 11-minute drone.
Yeah.
otherwise we're just going around in circles, right? So the reason, like, most of the time I know that I get most of the day to listen to music, or as much or a little as I want. But if my friend who maybe doesn't get as much time to spend time think about music and check out new stuff says, what do you want to put on, or put on something, then I don't want to consult them about that. You know what I'm saying? The same way, if I go into someone's house and they're like, I'm cooking, I'm not going to tell them like, no, I'll just let them cook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the Instagram thing. All right, let them cook. Anyway, but yeah, I will just let them do their thing.
Yeah.
Within the dietary palette. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But music doesn't really have a dietary palette.
No, and that's also is like one of my big bugbears with music is we know treat it like food. If the media covered music like it covers food, then we'd have a deeper understanding of all the ingredients. We'd have a deeper understanding of the history and the cultures that have led to the different dishes we've got. We'd have people traveling places on television and experience the local music culture. And then because you don't get that happening enough in music. And it's one of the big things that I'm thinking about. But also that, just one final thought, you talked about the community notes. And when I love a record, I want to put it everywhere. So if I've reviewed a Taylor Swift album, I want to put the 3 albums everyone should be listening to at the end. And like, it always surprises me that I've been online for years and I hardly ever see that happen. I shoehorn in references that have got nothing to do necessarily with what I'm writing about to get people to go off on a journey and go discover that. And it's like, if you're not using the moment where you're going to have the biggest audience to do the big thing for the smaller artist or the thing that you're passionate about, I think that's the bit where it feels like a lot of things have fail to understand the importance of that human passion, and how, like you said, taking someone to a show, there's nothing more infectious than someone loving something and wanting to take you with them. And I think that's such a powerful human emotion, isn't it?
Exactly. And the same thing happens every December where everyone's putting their like most listened to acts on Spotify. I can't remember what it's called, Wrap Up. And last year mine was like, okay, why don't we do Blow Up instead? So it gives you the wrap up of the most listened to, that, you know, it's in Beyonce, whatever it is that people listen to that is pop, like the most obvious things. But then it has 5 artists that are like not as well known, not as well played, that is worth you telling your friends about. So from on my whatever listening, it might be people that have got like, you know, under 50,000 monthly listeners that I've listened to, you know, more than 3 or 4 times, that could do with the, you know, the props, you know. And
let's do it. Let's do it this year.
Ecosystems don't do that, you know. And maybe they don't encourage it because that wouldn't get the most hits, but like actually that would generate a lot. I think that it would generate a lot more conversation than you know, whatever the thing is. Like last year I saw like people non-ironically posting their wrap up. I listened to this amount of hours of Drake, this amount of hours of Beyonce, this amount of hours of whatever the other things were. I'm like, okay. You can't win.
And I think that's the last word. I can't win.
You can't win, make the thing. That's it.
Thank you for listening to the Drown in Sound podcast. That conversation took place in November 2023, which means the couple of bits which Elijah mentioned about his exhibition are already gone. But if you follow him online, he is ELI1AH on Twitter and Instagram, and I think TikTok and some other places too. You can find out about his upcoming events through his links and various other things that he's up to. This is the continuation of season 2 of the Drown in Sound podcast about the future of media. If you've not listened to the other episodes yet, just search Drown in Sound wherever you get your podcasts, and do drop me a line. I'm at Sean in Sound on social media. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.